Have you ever wondered how a woman determines a man's masculinity? How maybe she rates you next to other guys? What exactly is she looking for? Does she have some kind of mental grade sheet or scorecard? Well, if you've ever been curious, then stick around because I'm about to break it down. While women don't have a literal score sheet, they do subconsciously assess a man's masculinity and compare it to other men. So you want to make sure that she's going to rank you high in masculinity because the more masculine she views you, the greater the polarity will be in your relationship, increasing her level of attraction for you. But because men view masculinity differently than women, sometimes they don't always put the focus and their efforts towards the right things. So let's talk about those things that she's looking at. And for the sake of simplicity, we will just go from the most important things to the least. Now, as a man, you're probably thinking that having a great body is the number one thing that you should focus on. But actually, I rank that as number 3. The number one thing is how you smell. More specifically, you can't stink. So the number one thing is you cannot smell. You don't have to smell particularly good. I mean, bonus if you do. Most women just love your natural scent anyway, but you absolutely cannot stink. And the reason why I rank this as number 1 is because I just can't think of any scenario in which if a man has persistent foul odors emitting from his body, that it can be endured long term. It's just going to sexually shut her down. And the reason why this is because women's noses biologically are more sensitive than men's. In fact, my nose is so sensitive, I think I'm part bloodhound. Like, I just smell everything. So if a woman comes into your physical space and what she smells is offensive, or your breath smells like something had crawled up in there and died, she's not going to want to have anything to do with you. And guys, I'm not talking about normal morning breath. You know, you wake up, we all have stinky breath, you go and you brush your teeth and you're good to go. No, this is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is the rotten egg sulfur smell that emits out of your lungs, even if you're breathing with your mouth closed. And that type of odor is very specific to periodontal disease. But what I've found as a dental hygienist over the last 30 years is that most people who come in with periodontal disease have no idea how bad they stink. And even though I haven't worked in a dental office for 11 years since the twins were born, I remember thinking, I don't know how this guy's wife kisses him. And it's likely that she just doesn't. So remember at the beginning where I said you're going to have to be willing to spend some money on yourself. Your mouth is one of these areas. Get your teeth and your gums cleaned up, use a tongue scraper, use the floss or water pick, get those cavities filled. And then once things are healthy, you can start working on those cosmetic issues like teeth whitening or orthodontic work or veneers. And I've had people ask, these are my natural teeth. They're just have been whitened. So your mouth can't stink, but the aesthetics, how your teeth actually look, that's really important too. Because a great smile is almost always on a woman's list of things that she's looking for. Listen, your smile is either going to make her melt or it's going to make her cringe. There's kind of no in between. So even if your teeth are clinically healthy and maybe they just cosmetically look bad, maybe you've got a lot of crowding or maybe they're yellow, she might like you well enough to overlook that. But if you were to get it fixed, it would absolutely make a substantial difference to the level of attraction she has for you. Let's look at these guys here who spent some money on their teeth and the difference it made for them. The difference here is profound. And maybe this cosmetic side of your mouth is a little bit more important here in the US because it just seems that the general population in the UK hasn't quite gotten this memo yet. Like, nobody over there gets orthodontics. If anybody can tell me why the Brits don't seem to care much about the appearance of their teeth, I'd be interested in knowing the reason. So it doesn't matter how physically attractive you are. If any part of you stinks, whether it's your mouth, your butt, your armpits, she's not going to be able to overlook that. Her biology, her nose is telling her to stay away from you, that you are not healthy. So rule number 1 is you can't stink. The second most important thing we look at is your face. Your face is going to trump your body when it comes to attraction for the simple reason that you can't cover it up. Well, you guys can do quite a number with the right beard. Beards on men are like the male equivalent for makeup on women. And you can absolutely hide a ton of flaws with the way that you dress. But your face, that's on display all the time. So it doesn't matter how hot your body is. Your body can look like Michelangelo himself sculpted it. She will not want to have sex with you if it's attached to a face with problems. A man with a great face and an okay body is always going to be viewed as more attractive to a woman than a man with a great body and just an okay face. And so if your face is so important, and it is, then I think it warrants a more nuanced discussion of the individual features. Let's first talk about your jawline. A man's jawline is the most important feature of your face when it comes to how a woman perceives your masculinity. And so if you have what we call in the dental world as a retrognathic profile, which is commonly known as a weak chin, that's where your chin, if you were to look at your side profile here, I can't even do it with my own mouth, but that's where your chin is actually pushed back farther towards the back than it should be. It creates a very weak looking jawline. You are going to be seen as more feminine. Have you seen those memes online where women see their men for the first time without the beards? And she sees for the first time how weak his jawline is. And she'll just laugh and laugh at him because he just looks absolutely ridiculous. When a man uses his beard to hide an extremely weak jawline, that is called being beard fished. You know, like catfished, but with a beard. Because he catfished the woman into thinking he's more attractive than he is. So because having a strong jawline is so much associated with masculinity, there's simply no workaround here. It has to be fixed. Whether that's orthodontic work, surgery, a chin implant, or maybe it's not where your actual jaw is pushed back, but more so that you have an excessive amount of like fat or skin that your jaw can't be seen at all. So maybe something like that can be fixed with a lower facelift or liposuction that will allow your naturally great jawline that's in there to actually be seen and exposed. But maybe your jawline's okay, but you just want to make it even stronger, then you can do that with these exercises called mewing. Just look it up on YouTube. So men, do not ignore a weak jawline. Now we're going to move on to your nose. Now, women don't really think much about men's noses unless there's a problem with it, like you see here in this picture. Now, this nose is probably larger than most women would be attracted to. And his after picture shows how much more balanced his nose is for his face. So if your nose is extremely large or it's crazy crooked or something that it just is difficult to ignore because it's just so in your face and a woman would have a hard time just like kind of looking over or past it, then a rhinoplasty is probably money well spent. And this is also how we view your eyes. They are pretty much a non-issue unless there's something abnormal about them. Now let's go ahead and talk about facial hair. In general, men with facial hair will be perceived as more masculine than men who are clean shaven, especially if you have been using that facial hair to hide that weak jawline. And because there's so many different facial hairstyles, you simply just need to go with whatever the woman in your life likes to see on you. My personal preference for my husband is that 3 to 4 day grown out look. Not quite clean shaven, but not quite a beard yet. Beards are great. Most women like beards. But for me personally, the look that I don't like is when they get super long and unruly because that looks a bit dirty to me. But the general rule when it comes to your facial hair is go with what the woman in your life finds attractive on you. Now, I do have a pretty strong opinion when it comes to mustaches. Now, there's only one man that I've ever seen that looks good with a mustache, and that's Tom Selleck. I just don't like them. Not only do I not just not like them, I find them repulsive. Most of you by now know that my husband's in law enforcement, and every agency has their own rules and regulations, and it wasn't until just about a couple years ago that they wouldn't allow men to wear beards, but mustaches have always been fine. So every November, there's this thing that they do called Movember, where they would all decide to grow out a mustache. And so when November comes around, my husband, he knows he's just not going to get any action. And I'm not doing that to punish him because I didn't get my way. I'm doing it because I physically I just can't even look at him. I'm repulsed. I know this makes no sense for me to have such a strong visceral reaction. And I've just never really met a woman who really loves a mustache on a man. They may not be as adverse to it as I am, but what men will typically find is that they'll get complimented on their mustache by other guys because I guess sometimes it's hard to grow them. It's not a look that get most women's panties wet. I'll just put it that way. So let's talk about your guys' hair. Now, I think that you guys put a lot more value on your hair than us ladies do. We don't care whether you have hair or not. Hair is good. Bald is sexy too. In fact, I've never known my husband with hair. I've looked at pictures where he had hair and I'm like, ew, I don't like it. So the length, the color, the style that you choose to do, just stick with whatever looks good for you, what the lady in your life likes on you. But the biggest mistake I see men make when it comes to their hair is place where I call it the in-between place, the guys where they are starting to lose their hair, but they haven't quite gotten there all the way. You either need to book that trip to Turkey and get their hair transplant done or accept your fate and whip out the razor and just shave it all off. And just to let you know, like if you are thinking about having cosmetic procedures, Turkey is top notch. So if you are needing some dental work and your nose done and your hairline done, You can get it all taken care of in one trip to Turkey. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to grooming. When it comes to your face or your body, you want to make looking at it and touching it as pleasant of an experience as possible. And usually that happens by taking away things that are distracting or things that shouldn't be there. And barring extreme cases, we tend to like hair on men because it enhances your masculinity. But there are two places we don't want to see it, and that is on your shoulders and your back. No woman wants to wrap her arms around you and feel like she's hugging a carpet. So if you look like you could be related to Sasquatch, you better be looking into buying a laser hair removal package. And another thing that you're going to notice as you get older is that you're going to start growing hair in places that didn't used to have hair, and then you're going to start losing hair from places you want to keep. Or there are certain places where your hair has gone kind of wild, like your eyebrows or the back of your neck now is much bushier than it's been before. So you're going to start getting more nose hairs coming out. You're going to start getting hair in your ear. And all this means is that as we age, we're just going to have to start devoting more time to our grooming. Now let's talk about grooming your nether regions. Now, as I said before, when your wife is interacting with your body, you want it to be as pleasant of an experience as possible. And I don't see how that's going to be possible without some kind of care and attention to your nether regions. And this even applies to men who are not sexually active at all with their wife, or for those men who currently don't have a relationship. And this may sound like odd advice. And why do I say this? And the reason I say this is because you just never know when an opportunity might arise. Like, you guys know the concept of being prepared. You typically carry a condom in your wallet or in your car or somewhere, just in case the opportunity arises. And I view grooming in the same light, and to make grooming as a habit of just who you are as a man. So you don't have to develop that habit later if a woman comes into your life, like it's already there. Now, for the married guys who aren't seeing any action from their wife, why do I recommend that you do this? Well, this is a dark psychology tactic. We want her to wonder why you are grooming something that supposedly is not going to be seeing any action. So she's going to see you trimming that area, and the wheels in her head are going to start turning. And she's going to create all kinds of crazy scenarios in her mind of what this means. And she'll start getting jealous over something that means nothing. And then she'll probably likely ask you about it. And you'll just simply tell her, well, I'm just taking better care of myself physically now. And then she'll wonder what that statement means. Listen, guys, a woman has to be a little bit jealous in a relationship. Jealousy is your friend. A little bit of jealousy is always good for your relationship to keep her interested over a long period of time. So let's go on now to your body. The woman's looking at your body. What does she find attractive? Well, the first rule of being attractive when it comes to your body is don't be fat. 90% of being attractive as a man is simply not being fat. And I want to be very clear here that I'm not talking about 10, 20, or 30 pounds. I'm not talking about dad bod types. I'm talking about clinical obesity. But yet 40% of Americans are obese. So the bar here is actually pretty low. And the problem with obesity isn't solely from the attraction angle. It goes so much deeper. And I've laid that out in another video, and I'll put a link in the notes for you. But conversely, what is almost worse than being too fat is being too skinny, because a man's muscles is the greatest indicator of your ability to protect her. So if you don't have any, she's never going to feel truly safe. But you don't have to be some over-the-top meathead to be considered attractive to a woman. Let's go ahead and pull up this picture so we can discuss these different body types here. Most women would not find number 10, 11, or 12 attractive, despite the fact that their muscles have muscles. It's just too much. Because when you get to this level where you're like that into your body, we're going to start wondering what you're compensating for. In fact, most women would choose 1 or 5 far before they're going to choose a man with extreme muscles. So looking at this picture, most women are going to be perfectly fine with any of these guys, 1 through 9, with number 6 as being the closest to ideal. But there's a lot of men, coaches in the manosphere space, that will tell you women aren't attracted to dad bods. And you got to have that 6-pack abs. And I'm here to tell you that that's not true. I would say a good guideline to know if your body is probably okay is if you answer yes to all of these 4 questions. All right. So this first question is your stomach smaller than your chest? So if you're standing upright, does your chest project out farther than your stomach? If it does, you're probably okay. Because how your body's composition is laid out is important. If you look normal everywhere else, but then you carry everything in like as a beer belly, where if you look 9 months pregnant and ready to give birth, that's not going to work for women. That's not attractive. Another question is, do you get hit on or looked at by other women besides your wife? If so, this should serve as proof of your attractiveness. But the difficult about this thing is that you guys are awful at picking up on hints and clues of women hitting on you, even when it's right in your face. Like my husband did not even know we were on a date until we were actually on the date. I had invited him to a movie, and unbeknownst to me, going to the movies is one of his most favorite things in the world to do. So he probably would have just gone with anybody. But I guess during the movie, I reached over and squeezed his knee. And it was at that moment he got the aha. Oh, she's interested. So yeah, you guys aren't great with reading signs and clues. And if you want help with that, I did put together a video about the 7 signs that she's into you, and I'll put that in the notes for you. Another question is, do you have strong arms? Listen, I've already said it earlier. A man's strong arms does for us what boobs do for you. Like if you have the strong bicep and there's some vein action going on, it just does something to us ladies. Like it's so sexy. And the last question is your current sex life pretty good? Because the frequency of sex is a really great indicator of just how attracted she is to you. So if your sex life is currently good, the frequency, her initiating at least periodically, especially when we're talking about long-term relationships, these are good signs. She probably finds you sufficiently attractive. Well, there you have it. Some of the clues of how women assess your masculinity. But did you know there are way more to it than I had time for today? This was just a small segment from my new course, How to Create and Maintain Long-Term Sexual Attraction. I'll go ahead and drop that link for the course in the description. And make sure to stick around for the next video, which YouTube seems to think you're going to really love. And with that, I'll see you next time.